Major changes for the neurological system were just proposed on November 12th, right after Veterans Day and the Marine Corps birthday. Happy birthday, by the way. And I covered nerve damage, and more specifically, sciatic nerve damage, as that is an extremely common claim. That's generally connected via secondary. And yes, those are criteria changes that if that affects you, you need to take a peek at that. And today, the neurological system also includes TBI. And so we're going to cover how the VA is changing the criteria for TBI. And yes, mental health is a part of that conversation. So this is going to be, these are major changes, okay? It is super similar to the mental health proposed changes, meaning there's like all these buckets, right? Mental health has 5 domains or 5 buckets, if you will. And you're going to see that with TBI as well. And there are so many proposed changes out right now, right? That are going to take effect, like mental health, tinnitus, sleep apnea, there's constrictive bronchitis, right? IBS and GERD changed this year, insomnia changed this year, and now we have neurological conditions, tons of nerves, and TBI. So there's like, I don't know, 20 proposed changes that are going to happen at some point. So I'm going to leave all those below in the pinned comments. So if any of those affect you, you're going to want to take a peek at any and all of those. All right, I'll have it all in one spot. But for right now, let's talk about TBI. And I'm going to start with showing you how TBI is currently rated. And here it is. Bam. This is the current rating schedule, not proposed. This is happening right now. It's diagnostic code 8045 for TBI. You can Google that, Google 38 CFR, ECFR 8045, right? Or TBI. It'll pop up. And pretty much this says there's 3 main areas of dysfunction, which are you have cognitive, emotional, and behavioral, which is 1, and physical. All right. And so here you'll see pretty much a vomit. It's very similar to how mental health is also currently rated. It's just a vomit of symptoms in one paragraph. So you have your cognitive here. You have your subjective symptoms that may be associated with cognitive impairment, right? So those are, although it's 2 different paragraphs, it's still one of the cognitive here. Then you have your emotional behavioral dysfunction, and then your physical dysfunction. And again, it's just a vomit of symptoms, kind of hard to read, right? Motor and sensory dysfunction, pain, extremities in the face, visual impairment, hearing loss, and tinnitus. It's just a ton of symptoms, which is kind of confusing. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the proposed criteria changes for TBI. And when I say proposed, so for neurological conditions, the comment period is open, I believe, for 60 days as of November 12th. So you still have time to make your comments if you want, assuming that the VA reads them. And yes, the VA secretary has a hand in VA SRD, VA schedule of rating disability changes. Okay, he said it himself with constrictive bronchitis. Anyways, these are your buckets. And I'm going to use buckets, okay? In mental health proposed change, they call domains, and you have levels of impairment here. Very, very similar. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, and then you have total. Mental health has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very, very similar. Then you have these buckets, okay? And here they called facets of cognitive impairment. And so we have memory, attention, concentration, and executive function. So remember how in the current criteria, this is current now. I'm going to be swapping back and forth a lot, so I apologize. It's just a vomit of symptoms. Like, do you have these? Yes or no? All right. The proposed new criteria, it breaks it down. Here are your symptoms. Let's talk about levels of impairment, right? Are you a 1? Are you a 2? Are you a 3? Or are you totally impaired for these facets, right? Buckets. I'm going to keep saying buckets. Then you have judgment down here. So mental health has 5. TBI, I think, has 7 if we're going to count, okay? So here's 1 bucket. Judgment is 2. And again, levels of impairment remain the same. It just changes for judgment. So for instance, on number 2, moderately impaired judgment, for complex or unfamiliar decisions, usually unable to identify, understand, and weigh the alternatives. understand the consequences of choices, and make a reasonable decision, although has little difficulty with making simple decisions. So if that's you, you're a 2. Now, obviously, this is super subjective. And mental health, even the proposed criteria, is still super subjective. But this is a step in the right direction to be as objective as possible. And if you're wondering, the VA doesn't create these, all right? They definitely format it. But essentially, when a VA SRD change happens, they fall in line with the most up-to-date, medical consensus on conditions. We see that with mental health and DSM-5. Same with TBI here. Tinnitus is a huge one, very controversial. But yes, the VA did not make that up. They essentially fall in line with what's being said. So you have social interaction. Tons of veterans are not going to. That's hilarious, right? Now, keep in mind, this one doesn't have a total, right? Social interaction is inappropriate most or all of the time. That reminds me of like Patches O'Houlihan's from Dodgeball. That's what that reminds me of. If you get that reference, then you know what I'm talking about. If not, go watch Dodgeball. It is an absolute stellar movie. Okay. You have orientation, which is number 4. So your ability to orient, again, there's no total. Oh, there's a total here. Excuse me. There it is. Bada bing, bada boom, right there. You have motor activity with intact motor and sensory system. And so I'm going to flip back to the current criteria or old criteria, and it still falls in line with cognitive, subjective, your emotional, behavioral, and physical. But the formatting and the way the VA is going about it, and we would assume that's going to be an updated DBQ as well, is more structured. It's definitely going to allow the CMP examiner to properly walk through a TBI examination. All right. You have visual spatial orientation going from 0 to total. Subjective symptoms, there we go, right? Going from 0 to 2. Just 2 there. You have neurobehavioral effects going from 0 to 3. You have communication going from 0 to total. And then, of course, you have consciousness. I'm going to read that real quick because that just seems weird to me. Persistently altered state of consciousness. That absolutely, you're talking like SMCT if you're falling in this one, such as vegetative state, minimally responsive state, coma. Man, I pray for whoever falls in this category here. I have a good friend who has SMCT and his life sucks. That's really the only way to describe it. Anyways, mental health has 5 buckets. We have 1 bucket, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 buckets. Wow, I said 7. It is 10. Big dummy me. So there you go. That's how TBI is going to be rated. Yes, mental health is a part of that question, right? Looking at the mental health impairment or the proposed changes, even current at 70%, you're going to see PTSD with TBI roped together a lot, especially at 70%. There are veterans who have 100% for PTSD and 100% for TBI. Obviously, they are very severe in those areas, and that really sucks for them, for real, right? And then, of course, you have your veterans who have like a 50% TB or PTSD rating with like a 10% TBI rating, right? But mostly the VA ropes TBI and mental health together more often than not. I would make the argument, and this is just coming from a dude in his basement who reads federal regulations for fun, for whatever reason, okay? It seems to me that the TBI criteria and the mental health criteria, because they are so specific and formatted in a way that is very individual, right? All of these are individual things here. They're all individual. It might be easier, and I would probably bet money, if I bet money, to see more mental health ratings and more separate TBI ratings just based on the new proposed criteria for both mental health and the proposed criteria for TBI which is what we're seeing here. So this is a new federal register, right? If you're not sub to them, you need to be. Schedule rating disabilities, neurological conditions. I'm going to leave this link below in the pinned comment as well as all the other changes to insomnia, IBS, GERD, hemorrhoids, right, was updated, mental health, tinnitus, sleep apnea, and then there's a ton of neurological conditions that are being updated. But yep, that's all I got right now. Hopefully you got something out of that. If you made it to the end, please let me know, right? Comment something funny. And yep, that's all I got. Thank you.